Hello, anatomy students. So our next unit is called histology, which is the study of tissues. So we're going to talk about all the different tissue types in the human body. Now, this topic is very important as we move forward. It's the last kind of introductory topic that we need to do before we start studying the specific systems of the body. But for example, we need to know what muscle tissue looks like, how to identify it, what its structure is, and what its function is. Then, as we get into the muscular system, we'll talk more specifically about that tissue and about the system and how it works in general. So, in college, I used to work in a veterinary diagnostic lab, and I worked in the histology department where I sliced pieces of tissue from livestock or different animals, slicing tissues of brain or liver, digestive tissues. It was a little bit of a dirty job, I guess you could say, but those tissues then went to get made into microscope slides. They were stained, and it was kind of a cool place to work for a little while in college. So we are going to end up looking at some of those tissues under the microscope slides, and you should know that when you look at a slide, it's typically stained, and it's not the color of the actual tissue in most cases. So let's move on. Okay, so tissue is similar cells that have a common function. Now, if you remember your organization of the human body, we have cells which are smaller than tissue. So cells make up tissue, and tissue makes up larger things like organs. So now if I use the term histology, I'm talking about the study of tissues. The four major types of tissues that we're going to talk about is epithelial tissue, which is skin is included in that. Connective tissue, which is kind of a conglomeration of different things that connect pieces of the body, so like bone and cartilage, muscle tissue, and then nervous tissue found in the brain. Let's start with epithelial tissue. So here's some of the general characteristics to write down. They cover organs and the body. So your skin is epithelial tissue covering your entire body. And then it also outlines any organs. That's all epithelial tissue. Lines body cavities and any hollow organs. Now it has two surfaces, one being the free surface and one being the basement membrane. So if we're looking at a piece of epithelial tissue, the free surface would be here, the one that is exposed to either the outside of the body or on the outside of the organ, and then the basement membrane is here. It's connected to some type of structure. Okay, free surface and basement membrane towards the bottom there. Okay, cells of epithelial tissue readily divide and they're tightly packed. So if there's a break in any skin cells or any outer linings of organs, they can repair very fast. The function of epithelial tissue is to protect your body. They also secrete from glands, they absorb materials, and they excrete. They're classified according to their cell shape and the number of layers that they have. Okay, let's talk about some specific types of epithelial tissue. So now both of these types on the screen say simple. Anytime you see simple, that means there's just a single layer of cells. Okay, so simple squamous is a single layer of flat cells. Okay, now squamous means flat. Since they are flat and only one layer, substances can pass easily through them. So it makes sense that they would line areas like air sacs where air needs to, oxygen and CO2 needs to exchange, blood vessels for materials to exchange across, lymphatic vessels. Okay, then we have simple cuboidal. So again, simple meaning a single layer, and then cuboidal meaning cube-shaped cells. Okay, so here you can see the image, cube shape, one layer. This is a nice little drawing of it to simplify things, and then you can see the real pictures of cuboidal cells. This one is also a drawing, and here are the cuboidal cells. Okay, They line kidney tubules, ovaries, and ducts of some glands. Now, thinking about their structure, they have more space than a squamous type cell, so it makes sense that they would be in these areas because they can secrete materials as needed, and especially in glands. Okay, now we have simple columnar, so it's a single layer. Columnar, meaning like columns, so they're elongated cells. You can see how tall the cells are in the cartoon drawing. Now the nuclei are going to be these dots here that you see, the nucleus. You can see them in the real pictures as well. Sometimes they have cilia or microvilli. The cilia are basically like little projections, little hairs. Sometimes, yep, we got that microvilli, which is found in like the intestines, okay, and that helps with absorption of materials. So if we look at this picture here, this microvilli, those little hairs, are going to increase the surface area or how much area there is to absorb materials into the digestive system. They also line the uterus and stomach. Okay, next up is pseudo-stratified columnar. Now, stratified means there's more than one layer of cells, but pseudo means false, so it's a false double layer, okay? So you can see with these cells, it almost looks like there's more than one layer just because of the odd shape that they have, but in reality, there's only one layer of cells. It's a false layer. Okay, and they're columnar, meaning they are taller cells. Okay, so we have a single layer of elongated cells. There can be nuclei at 2 or more levels, so we can see nuclei down here, and then we also see it up further. So it almost looks like there's 2 nuclei per cell, but when you look closely, there is not. Oftentimes they have cilia as well because they line the respiratory passageways, okay? So that helps increase surface area for taking in oxygen. Next, we have stratified squamous. So stratified means there's many cell layers. Now, squamous, remember, means that they are flat cells. Now, especially the top cells are going to be more flat looking than the bottom cells. So we can see that in this real picture here. It's a nice picture. The top cells are flat, okay? Now, each outline that we have, like this is one cell, okay? And then this is a second cell. So each outline is its own cell, where the top cells are flat, and you can see kind of as we go on there, not all is flat looking here, but towards the top they are. That's stratified squamous. Since they are many cell layers, that adds a lot of layer for protection, so it makes sense that they line outer layers of the skin and then any oral cavities. Okay, so if these layers break down at the top, the lower layers are still there and they can repair those cells quickly. Then we have stratified cuboidal. Okay, it's 2 to 3 layers of cube-shaped cells. They line ducts of the mammary glands, sweat glands, salivary glands, and the pancreas. Okay, so now thinking about cuboidal, they have more room to store things in those cells, so they can, for mammary glands, they can produce the milk. Okay, sweat glands, they can produce the sweat. Salivary glands produce saliva. Okay, so remember how the structure, how the cells look, is related to the function or what they do. Okay, now we're on to stratified columnar. So stratified, meaning multiple layers, columnar, they're taller, elongated cells. And with these multiple layers, we actually see cube-shaped cells deeper. Okay, so you can see that in this image here, that as we go deeper into the layers, there's actually cube-shaped cells, but it's still considered stratified columnar. They line parts of the urethra in the male and part of the pharynx, okay, which is in the mouth area. Transitional, it's kind of a catch-all for the types of tissue that don't really make a whole lot of sense in that there's different sizes. Okay, so we have cube-shaped and elongated cells that line the urinary bladder, ureters, and part of the urethra. You can see in this picture here, the top ones are thinner cells, more flat. We call these umbrella cells, and then as you go deeper, there's some more cube-shaped cells. So this is a type of tissue that has multiple shapes of cells. Glandular epithelium. So this is composed of cells that are specialized to produce and secrete substances. So it makes sense that they would be more elongated because they have more room to secrete materials. Two types of glands are endocrine, endo meaning inside, okay, so endocrine, oops, they secrete things from the inside out in this example. Exocrine glands, they do have ducts, okay, which you can see, this is a duct right here, and they secrete things outwards, okay. So endocrine, they are actually going to secrete directly into the blood versus the exocrine glands that could actually secrete right onto the surface of the skin. Okay, connective tissue is the most abundant type of tissue. Okay, there's lots of different types. And basically, think of connective tissue as connecting different parts of the body together. Okay, there's many functions. They can bind structures, they can be supportive and protective, they can store fat, they can produce blood cells. So what we have going on here is a more loose type of tissue here. This is blood cells, and here we have some fat cells, which we call adipose tissue. Okay, here's our connective tissue types. Now I'm getting a little, I'm about halfway through the slides, so I'm going to stop this video here and you will have a second one to complete after.